Today we are joined by Dr. Ritu Nahar, a leading gastroenterologist with offices in Edison and Somerset. With a bachelor's degree from Rutgers University and a medical degree from Robert Wood Johnson Medical School through the BA/MD program, Dr. Nahar completed her training at Jefferson University, earning both certifications in gastroenterology and internal medicine. She has shared her expertise through various publications and podcasts covering topics like gut health and the benefits of spices. Recently, she embarked on her most exciting journey yet as a new mom to twin boys. Today, we'll delve into gastrointestinal health, particularly in the South Asian community. Welcome to ITV Gold, Dr. Ritu Nahar.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So let's start with the questions. What are some of the common gastrointestinal GI issues observed in the South Asian community?
I think the top three, if I were to pick, probably would be acid reflux. Number two would be fatty liver, and the third would be IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome. So acid reflux is that feeling that you get when you've eaten a little bit too much spicy biryani, or you've had chai on an empty stomach. That burning feeling that you're getting in your chest is acid reflux, and that's essentially a sign where acid is coming up from your stomach into your food pipe or the esophagus. And this usually happens every now and then for some people, but if it becomes more consistent, it can actually change the lining of your esophagus, and that can turn into something called Barrett's esophagus, which is a little bit more serious and is a precancerous change. So that would be number one. Number two would be fatty liver. Essentially, your liver, as this is a type of disease where your liver is storing excess fat. So all those extra laddus that you're maybe eating on Diwali, they can turn into fat deposition in the liver, which is reversible, but we take it very seriously because the second stage would be fibrosis, or where the liver is scarred down. Third stage would be cirrhosis, and that's end-stage liver disease, not reversible. So if you can catch it early in that first stage, the fatty liver disease stage, we still have a chance to turn it around. And then the last thing that I'm seeing very frequently now is irritable bowel syndrome. So this is the mind-gut connection. So everyone knows, stress and changes in environment and transitions in life, you're actually more prone to getting GI symptoms. So this can be bloating, constipation, diarrhea, cramping, abdominal pain. And so identifying triggers and all of that can be very helpful. Some other honorary mentions that I would like to just throw out there. One is inflammatory bowel disease. We're seeing that a lot more commonly in our younger population. These are autoimmune conditions that impact the colon. Other conditions would be constipation leading to hemorrhoids or biles. We see that all the time. Really, that can be secondary to genetics or just diet changes in general. And then lastly would just be what's that called? Lactose intolerance, because everyone's lactose intolerant. We lose that enzyme as we age. So it's very commonly that you'll see people that are having bloating or even just food intolerances in general.
Why is the stomach or the gut called the second brain?
And I think that kind of relates to that mind-gut connection. So embryologically, the nervous system from our brain and our gut come from the same place, and then over time they migrate to different places in our body. So a lot of times when you're going through, like I mentioned, particularly stressful times or just transitions in life, or when you're emotionally, mentally feeling a lot of people will manifest that in your gut. And so that's where you get that gut feeling or that gut sense. That's actually, it originates from this like truth. Yeah.
Why do conditions like fatty liver and diabetes appear to be more prevalent among South Asians?
So it's unfortunately our genetics. So as you know, our ancestors came from a time where they had to really thrive in famine type conditions where food was a little bit sparse. So they developed these genes that are very good at harvesting like our sugars and our fats. But now we live in very different times. So we go to these Indian weddings, there's feasts, right? We're eating so much sugar, so much fat, and our body just keeps saving all of that energy. And that in turn leads to insulin resistance, which can then lead to diabetes and can then lead to liver disease or fatty liver disease. Additionally, just our lifestyle in general. Unfortunately, South Asians as our community are not as active as we probably should be. So the recommended amount of exercise is 150 minutes per week of moderate to high intensity exercise. So this means your heart rate should be going up. So a lot of our community, they're avid walkers and things like that, which has a lot of benefit, but you're unfortunately not burning that fat or having that metabolic benefit unless you start increasing the heart rate to a higher level.
So treadmill is something you'd recommend, or
treadmill,
running?
even if you're just power walking. So you should just first, if you're feeling that heart rate going up or starting to sweat a little bit, you're doing a good job. So at least I usually recommend, if you can't do it like a long time, 15 to 20 minutes a day is you would get the benefits for that.
I'm going to sign up for the Zumba class.
Let's do it.
Is heartburn or acid reflux particularly common in this community?
It definitely is. So heartburn or acid reflux is related to our diets, and we as Desis love our spicy foods. So anytime you're adding on the achar or you're getting that hot spicy food, you're triggering more acid production in the stomach, which results in higher levels of acidity. So usually what I'll recommend, my first advice is just to watch out for what we are eating. So avoiding alcohol, avoiding caffeine, especially chai on an empty stomach is a horrible thing to do to your stomach. Additionally, just citrusy foods, so tomato, garlic, onions, all of those types of foods in general, especially right before you sleep, you want to avoid that. Yeah. So in moderation, right? So the biggest advice I would give is you want to wait at least 3 hours after your last meal before you go to sleep. So if there's one thing that you take away from a reflux standpoint, that would be it. And additionally, smaller meals are generally better too. So the more you're eating, you're filling your stomach up, so that increases the pressure as well. So I think in general, South Asians definitely have more reflux, probably it's secondary to some of these dietary changes that we've made. Some of these Ayurvedic remedies that my family has talked about and grandparents have talked about, a little bit of cumin seeds or ajwain in warm water is very helpful. Soph or fennel seeds, or right after meals can actually help with indigestion as well. But like I was telling you before, if you're continuing to have reflux of that burning despite some of these lifestyle changes, you want to start, there are medications like PPIs or H2 blockers that you want to start so that we don't...
What's that?
So PPIs would be like omeprazole, pantoprazole. These are stronger medications that shut down the acid-producing pumps in our stomach. And again, the reason we do that is because we don't want repeated acid exposure into our esophagus.
How does diet influence gut health, and what dietary changes can South Asians make to improve their digestive well-being?
A really common phrase that people say is, you are what you eat.
Right.
And food is our best medicine. And it's actually very true. So diet plays a significant role in maintaining and influencing our gut health. And that's because of the gut microbiome, as you may have heard. So the gut microbiome is like trillions of bacteria and viruses and fungi that live in our digestive tract that help us maintaining our general gut health. And so a diet that's rich in whole-based plant foods, fermented foods, yogurts, probiotics can really help enrich that gut microbiome. And honestly, the research is just starting to come out. You asked that question before, like, why is our gut the second brain? I think in part it's related to that gut microbiome. It's been linked to so many other conditions, depression, anxiety, and such as well. So a lot of times just changing your diet to be a better diet can help influence the bacteria in your gut and thereby improve mood, improve energy levels, and such as well.
What is the happy food you would say?
Happy food. So you know what the happy drink is?
What?
Water. So the number of patients I see that don't drink enough water is astonishing. So you should be drinking 64 ounces of water ideally, or 2 liters of water. So those Poland spring bottles, those like 17 ounces of water, like 4 to 5 of those is our goal. So, and that's actually twofold. So one, water helps hydrate the lining of our colon and our intestines, so it makes them better able to absorb our nutrients and help with digestion. But two, it also just helps move things along so that we don't get constipated, so gas balls and food pockets aren't forming and getting trapped in our colon. So that I'm a huge believer of water. So many people's GI problems get fixed when they just drink more water. Yeah.
And food-wise, what would you recommend?
Like I said, just high fiber food. So, I married a Gujarati. I'm Rajasthani myself, and we love our snacks. We love our fried snacks. We love our mithais. Those are the worst things you can eat for your gut, right? So it increases your fatty liver risk. It increases so many things. But if we switch some of those things to like a high fiber diet, that actually works as a prebiotic. So fiber in itself, it's 25 grams for women and 35 grams for men, can help promote the gut microbiome. So if you increase your fiber and increase your water, it's magic. Yeah.
What proactive steps can South Asians take to prevent colon cancer?
So colon cancer is the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths in the United States when combined for both men and women. So this is a topic we take very seriously as gastroenterologists, and one of the biggest things I do is colon cancer screening. There's multiple modalities for this. The best, in my opinion, is a colonoscopy. Doing a colonoscopy can be a little bit daunting of a procedure. So the hardest part would be the day before. So you're going to be on a clear liquid diet the whole day, so you're essentially fasting, and then the night before you take a very strong laxative. So this laxative essentially flushes the system out so that the next day when we go in with a camera, you will get anesthesia, so you're fully asleep. There's no pain during or after the procedure. I'm essentially going from the rectum, we're making way all the way around the colon, and I'm hunting for polyps. So what are polyps? These are precancerous lesions. So over time, a polyp will turn into cancer, potentially. And so our goal is to basically cut them out so they don't even have the opportunity to do that. The whole procedure is about 15 minutes, but it can save your life. And so if there's one thing I want to emphasize, please, please, please get screened for colon cancer. And so the age for that is 45 unless you have a family history of colon cancer or something like that.
And this is prevalent in South Asians also?
So there's a higher incidence of it, and I think the reason for this is because there was no concept of screening in India, right? So, my parents, they're like, no, if nothing is wrong, why would I get a colonoscopy, right? Why do we want to go looking for problems? So that concept is not there of screening, and so now that more and more, like this is covered by your insurance at 100%.
I was about to ask
exactly.
you that.
So now we know that if it's covered by insurance, more people are going to get it. And so because it's now incentivized to get colonoscopies among South Asians, we're seeing a higher prevalence of polyps, higher risk polyps, and colon cancer as well. You had talked about like diet changes as well. There are some diet changes that you can do to prevent colon cancer as well. So one is avoiding red meats. So there's an association between red meat and increased incidence of polyps and colon cancer. So just avoiding that is very helpful. Avoiding smoking and alcohol, those have been linked to so many other types of cancers. And then actually losing weight. So obesity has been linked to increased amounts of polyps and colon cancer for whatever reason.
And there's so many things on the net these days about getting your detox done for your gut, for your liver. What is the safest and economic way if you want to get it done at home without buying all those medicines and powders?
I am not a fan. I'm going to tell you now. So detox kits can have side effects. So I actually had a patient who did some type of detox cleansing, ended up getting very significant liver injury from that.
Oh my God.
So a lot of these things are not FDA approved. They're not studied. And so they can have side effects to other parts of your body, specifically your liver. So what I would actually recommend, I'm a huge fan of Miralax. So Miralax is an over-the-counter laxative. We give it to babies, we give it to pregnant women. It's very safe and it's very well studied. So this is basically a powder. You would put one capful, you fill the bottle of the cap, and then you add that to a glass of water, and I would take that for 5 days. This will really help flush out, especially if you're someone that struggles with constipation, you're feeling bloated, you have a lot of the feeling of things that are not being fully evacuated. This would be a really good cleanse. In addition to just increasing the amount of water. So this is an osmotic laxative. So it works by drawing water in. So if you're not drinking enough water, it's not going to be as effective.
And what is the procedure to take it? Like in the day, in the night, before
I recommend,
sleeping?
Yeah, half an hour before breakfast on an empty stomach is usually what I'll recommend. A lot of these cleanses and such, the reason why they're effective is because we're not actually having full bowel movement. So a good bowel movement, you should be on the toilet for less than 3 minutes. You should not be straining, and you should feel like everything is coming out. So when you go to the bathroom, there's that feeling that there's still some things left over. That's not a good sign, and that accumulates. So then over time, you get that bloating and cramping sensation, and so you don't want that. And so that would be a sign that potentially Miralax could be beneficial for you.
What about the home remedies?
So there's so many home remedies that I'm a huge fan of. One, I think if I were to pick three, so one would be turmeric ginger tea. So turmeric is a natural anti-inflammatory spice that is very well studied. You can increase the absorption by adding black pepper as well, so that you're actually absorbing more of that as well. Number two would be CCFT. So this is 1 teaspoon of cumin seeds, 1 teaspoon of coriander seeds, and 1 teaspoon of fennel seeds with 3 cups of water boiled. This is like a natural indigestion remedy. If you can take it 3 times a day, perfect for helping with gut distress. And the last thing is triphala. So that's like that, you've probably heard of that as well.
You know your Indian spices.
I do.
Wow.
I think, we have to go back to our roots, because I think they knew what they were doing back then. And I think if you can incorporate some of that into our lifestyle now, that there's a lot of benefit to that as well. So instead of Miralax, if you want to just try that, that is also equally effective in detoxing as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
How does stress affect GI health, especially among individuals in the South Asian community?
So like we talked about, very strong mind-gut connection. So stress actually wreaks havoc on our digestive system regardless of your nationality. But I think in South Asians as a community, I think mental health is a little bit under-recognized and more taboo to talk about. Yeah. And so there's such a strong correlation between your GI symptoms, and whether that be reflux, whether that be inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome. So many of our GI conditions are related to our mind. And so generally, if you can find ways, whether it be meditation, pranayam, like the deep breathing exercises, to find peace in these aspects of our life, you'll actually find benefit in your GI world as well, sometimes more so than even the medicines that we're giving.
Are there any Ayurvedic remedies or practices that can positively influence GI health?
We sort of already touched on this before. So I think we talked about some of the, like the CCFT, turmeric ginger tea, triphala, all of that. It can be helpful. Even some warm water, so drinking instead of cold water, room temperature warm water can really help move things along, especially in the morning. If you start off with warm water with a little bit of lemon, cumin seeds or fennel seeds as well, can really help aid digestion as well. The one caveat I'll say with Ayurvedic medicine is there's a lot of pills and such that you can also get. So some of these are just natural spices and such, which I'm a huge fan of. But some of the pills and things, you really want to be careful, because again, we're heading into that non-FDA approved therapies, and a lot of that, so like high doses of turmeric, for example, so if you get turmeric in capsules, can cause liver injury. So you do want to be careful of some of the Ayurvedic remedies. Like people think that it's like natural and safe and such, but you never know what you're getting when it's a capsule form. But as opposed to like the spices and things that you're doing at home and you're putting it in your tea yourself, you can regulate that better.
Are there any specific cultural foods that you think contribute positively or negatively to GI health?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I think they would be great. So homemade yogurt has natural probiotics, so it's definitely great for your GI gut health. Our lentils, dals, natural source of fiber. I think generally our diet has a lot of vegetables that we're eating. So fruits and vegetables, like I mentioned, fiber has a lot of prebiotic properties. I think a combination of those two would probably be my 2 top foods in terms of the positive benefits. The negative benefits, like I talked about, those fried snacks, the mithais, those are all things that in excess, like every now and then, it's always good to enjoy, right?
But what if you replace like sugar with jaggery or
so those are all good benefits. Yeah, brown sugar or jaggery instead of sugar. Even adding like a lychee or cardamom instead of sugar. Like some of these other replacements are so much better than like high fat foods or high sugar foods. You really want to just avoid the refined sugars, processed foods. The more natural whole vegetable based meals that you can eat, the better.
How about milk or pure cow ghee? How are they?
So that's an interesting question. I feel that, especially by a certain age, so it's not even, so scientifically, the enzyme that we have to break down milk products, we lose that as we age. Some people are a little bit more sensitive to that than others, and that's called lactose intolerance. So eating and drinking excess amount of dairy products, I find usually results in some type of GI symptoms. And that's one of the most common things that I see in my office when people are coming in with bloating or general distress. So in terms of drinking milk, I would try to limit that or switch to lactose-free milk. Ghee, I think, is okay once in a while. Again, it is high in fats, but it is out of the fats that you can possibly have, it's probably one of the better ones. So that's my 2 cents on ghee.
Can you share any surprising or lesser known facts about gut health that people might not be aware of?
I think the mind-gut connection sometimes surprises people, like we talked about. So generally, people are living life, we're so busy, and we don't always have a sense of how some of these stressors that we're inheriting or feeling on a daily basis are impacting our gut health. So I think just even taking five minutes of doing the pranayama or breathing exercises or even yoga positions to help relieve gas and such can be very helpful. In terms of, so I don't know, the mind-gut connection is always such a fascinating topic to me. So that's one. I think the 2 other things I would say is you really don't want to hold in your bowel movements. That's also surprising. So everyone's like running to work, running to this, and if you have to go number 2, sometimes you don't have the best space or ability to do so. Over time, this can lead to problems, actually. It can cause hemorrhoids, which are engorged blood vessels in the rectum. It can lead to pelvic floor dysfunction for women, especially if you've had childbirthing and things like that as well. So just making sure you have a good, safe space to go to the bathroom, I think, is also can be very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for people who constantly suffer from stones like kidney stones, or they have gallbladder stones, or their gallbladder is removed for some reason or the other?
So kidney stones is a different department.
Okay.
But gallbladder stones, I can answer that. So gallstones are something, more common in women, especially in their 40s, and more linked to obesity and pregnancy. If you're having sharp right upper quadrant pain that's going to your back, specifically after fatty foods, that's a sign that potentially you should get an ultrasound to get that gallbladder checked out. One attack, is a sign that you're more likely to have further attacks, and if that stone gets stuck in the bile duct, it can cause a very severe infection, and then you would need emergency surgery. As opposed to if you get surgery before that infection happens, it's a same-day surgery, very quick recovery. So once you have one gallbladder attack, I just send you to the surgeon right away, because there's so much evidence that you will have potential for future attacks that it's actually recommended to just get the gallbladder out.
And what is life after gallbladder?
Well, you live normally. Yeah. The main symptom potentially could be something called bile acid diarrhea. So the gallbladder is a reservoir for bile. So that's where you store your bile. So without it, bile is more free flowing into your intestine. And so some people have a little bit more diarrhea, especially a couple of months after the surgery. But there are medicines called bile acid binders that people respond very well to. People do very well after the surgery. That being said, you can still have gallstones even after you have a gallbladder taken out, because the liver continues to produce bile.
Oh,
yeah.
And where are they then?
So they can get stuck in other parts of the bile duct system that are still there. So you're not completely safe, but your risk goes down substantially once you get the gallbladder out.
So what is the best procedure to dissolve them? Because you can't be just cutting up the stomach every time you see a stone.
No, so once you have a gallbladder that's stuck, so let's say you have your gallbladder taken out and you have another stone, there's actually a procedure called an ERCP where you would go in to take out the stone that gets stuck. Yeah.
So they don't dissolve on their own?
There is a medicine called ursodiol it's off-label used for dissolving the stones. It's really not studied well in this subject, and the effectiveness is also questionable, and obviously there are side effects and such. So usually it's not recommended.
I'm just thinking the best medicine is just keep drinking a lot of water.
Hydrate. Like I said, water is a gift to your GI tract. It has so many benefits.
What role do you think modern technology and apps play in managing digestive health?
I think there's a lot of great apps out there, especially for like my patients with celiac disease that have gluten allergy, for example. A lot of apps are out there in terms of modifying your diet and helping you identify what foods are safe, what foods are not. I think in general, there's so much information out there, so you have to be knowledgeable and you have the ability to access so much at your fingertips. So just, using that as a resource for yourself and understanding what you're eating, what you're consuming, reading the labels and understanding what foods are out there is great. Yeah.
So it is not very easy to understand the labels for common people. So what would you recommend is like the red flag or the green flag whenever we're buying some food?
Honestly, I think just using your, a little bit of that gut sense, right? So if you're eating fruits and vegetables, those are safe. Like sometimes the processed foods, I think the more, someone had once told me that the more the food has evolved from its original state, probably the worse it is for you, right? So the more processed it is, or the more that has happened to that original ingredients, the worse that food is. So I think instead of reading a label, kind of looking more at the organic base components, and if you can eat more of that base component as opposed to the processed component, that's probably a better rule of thumb.
So I'm guessing you wouldn't be a fan of protein powder and things like that?
Protein is interesting, right? There's so many pros and cons to protein. I think if you are going to do protein powder, doing a lactose-free version is probably better. Vegan ones are also, I think, generally better tolerated in the South Asian community.
So before wrapping this interview, is there something you would like to tell our audience?
I think South Asians commonly face a lot of GI symptoms, whether that be heartburn, whether that be fatty liver or irritable bowel syndrome. So if you're suffering from any of these symptoms, I think we as a community sometimes, we are focused on work or our children and such, and we put these issues off, but there are downstream consequences to untreated GI symptoms. So definitely get checked out. Colon cancer screening at age 45 or younger if you have any family history. I cannot emphasize that enough. There's so many benefits to catching these lesions before they even turn into cancer. Diet-wise, we talked about so many things today, but just increasing our fiber, avoiding those processed foods, avoiding high-fat foods, high-sugar foods, increasing the amount of water. Water is the gift to your GI tract. I cannot emphasize much how much water is so pivotal in your GI gut health. So 2 liters of water, ideally, or 64 ounces of water can really help just move things along and help things flow better in your GI tract. And mindfulness, just, the mind-gut connection is very real. So trying to find time for yourself to decompress can really help resolve a lot of our GI distress that we're feeling as well. So hopefully that was helpful.
Great. I have another question which is off the topic.
Yeah.
As a new mom, have you discovered any parenting hacks related to health that you'd like to share?
That's such a great question. As a new mom, parenting hacks. I don't know. I feel like I'm so new at this right now. I don't know if I have any tips to really share. I'm learning so much from my mom, my mother-in-law, and all the other moms that I'm surrounded by all the time. I think food-wise, though, it's very interesting to see the baby's experience. I have twins. They have such different reactions to food, which is very interesting. It kind of goes to show that you can have the same genes and the same genetics, but our food choices are so individual to ourselves. So I think just being open-minded to having your kids try different foods, and especially desi foods versus Western foods, since we live in this bicultural era, I think exposing your kids to as much as you can is really, it's really fun for me, and hopefully it's beneficial to them as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Nahar, for your insights on gastrointestinal health and the unique challenges faced by South Asian community. We look forward to your future contributions to health and wellness. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.